Coach. Oh Lord, I am looking tired, aren't I, babes? Okay, well, I'm here. I'm here. So we're going to talk about breaking free from guilt-based relationships. A lot of people find that guilt-based relationship and that being manipulated. Are you being manipulated by guilt? And here's the boundary that you need to know. We're going to start working on that this week. Some things that we can talk about. I know we've talked about a little bit about unearned guilt and guilt, but we're going to go over it again. I was in a live yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And somebody was saying that their partner would guilt them, to manipulate them, to get them to do what they wanted them to do. This happens. It's quite common. So we're going to talk about that more so tonight, about how you can recognize if you carry unearned guilt. Because if you carry unearned guilt, you could be easily manipulated. A lot of people don't understand unearned guilt, so we're going to talk about that this evening. We're going to talk about what real guilt is and the difference, and how you can take responsibility for both of them, because that's a common denominator, is taking responsibility for unearned guilt and real guilt. A lot of guilt was passed down from generation to generation about perceptions, about how people thought people should behave, especially like children. A lot of people tell me children were, taught to be seen and not heard. And did you get in trouble for being seen and heard and just being a kid? That's unearned guilt. So we'll give it a few minutes to allow some more people to come on here. If you're on here and you want to, John London. No, I have not been to the beach. Thank you for that compliment. Angela, you made it. Yay. Kim, it's good to see you, darling. I get to see you tomorrow night, right? So maybe I'll get to go to the beach tomorrow, John London, before I see Kim tomorrow night. And Angie, hello, hello. So y'all, Kim and Angie, y'all will be happy. I've got my neck up to here, so we're doing good. John London says hi to everybody. And so, yeah, so we're going to talk about guilt and unearned guilt. A lot of times people don't know the difference. Mama getting out of the hospital tomorrow. Well, let me know if you need to move anything, or if I need to see Ramon instead, or what needs to be done tomorrow night, darling. Angie, thank you. I'm glad you and Kim are here to keep the show on the road. Keep the show on the road. Grinch is here to entertain for a little while. I thought you're already able to moderate. You and Kim both can moderate. Y'all don't knock the people out who are just coming in. We'll give them a chance. But if they start talking, but I got my good shirt on today, so we should be good. I'm so blessed to have you all here. I appreciate that. So what we're talking about this evening is we're going to be talking about, breaking free from guilt-based relationships. Guilt-based relationships create obligatory relationships, like we talked about yesterday. If you were here in our Sunday story time, we did have one of the participants here talk about being in an obligatory relationship, to where when you're guilted, you feel obligated because they make you feel that way, like you're doing something wrong, right? And you may or may not be doing anything wrong. So we're going to try to, spread that apart, break that apart, and see. If you like this topic, please hit that like button. I'm sorry, my foot itched. And if you're new to this channel and have not subscribed yet, if you would please subscribe if this resonates with you. So yes, Angela and John London, Kim, Angie, all y'all, and everyone else who's here this evening. It's good to see you all. So I've got my notes here so that I can stay on track, because I am quite tired. When I celebrate my birthdays or whatever, whether it's a belly button birthday or a clean date birthday, that celebration can go on for days, darling, days. And I was celebrating still today when one of my besties took me to lunch, and we went to lunch in Cancun. We ended up sitting someplace for 2 hours, and I feel for her because I started getting hangry. Y'all ain't nothing nice and I woke up at 3 this morning, so there's that too. So anyway, but I got to eat, and then I got nice again. So yeah. There you go. Okay. Hey, Rodolfo, we are going to talk about guilt this evening. How about that? Just like promised. So I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about earned guilt versus unearned guilt. So You know, we need to learn. Can't imagine you hangry. I know, right? Yeah, she told me we're gonna go eat lunch. Then I ended up sitting guilt your old friend. She said, we're gonna go eat lunch. Then I ended up sitting someplace for 2 hours. I love her, but down here it's hot. You're sitting outside for 2 hours. I was like, mm. And she's like, oh, that didn't take too long. I'm like, girl, it took 2 hours. It's like, hi, cat boy. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The real Amazon. Hello, my name is Amazon. Well, you won't be my troll for too long. I have two moderators here, Amazon. You're welcome to be here if you're curious about guilt and unearned guilt. That's the topics this evening. I hope you all will stay on topic. We don't talk about politics, religion. I know, right? I know. I love my friend though. I love her. When we get an expectation, I'm going to go to lunch in Costco. Then we throw in a 2 hour adventure, aside. But I love her. And once I got to eat and got to Costco, that was what I went for. But the 2 hour adventure, I was like, So yeah, we're going to talk about the guilt and unearned guilt. Also, I wanted to remind you all, if you're new here, that we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about my age, and this ain't a dating channel. Religion is you're not going to hear me argue with you on that, Amazon. Religion is the cause of a lot of people's guilt. You're exactly right. So that's why we don't talk about it too much, because some people come on here. The reason I don't is some people come on here and guilt some people on here when they're trolling. That's the thing, right? And so we don't want anyone coming on over here, because we respect all belief systems here, because it's not my business what somebody's belief system is or their political thoughts. Not my business. That's not what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about boundaries and unearned guilt here. Hello, Cameron. Yeah, y'all ain't staying long if y'all talk crazy, because my girls got me here. Flying circus. Okay, they got you. You're gone. They ain't gonna, no. Okay. All right. Race bat, I bet you about to go too. Yep, there you go. Angela, codependents don't set boundaries because they feel guilty all the time. Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to talk about that a bit. A lot of people don't know to identify that as codependency, but I think that they'll be able to relate with the guilt and unearned guilt. So yeah, I'm so thankful that Kim and Angie are here this evening to take some of these crazy messages out so I can focus and we can focus on each other. This is a great community if you're new here. So welcome. All right, before we can set healthy boundaries, we need to understand the difference between unearned guilt and guilt, right? Guilt and unearned guilt. So unearned guilt is the guilt we carry for things that were never ours to our responsibility for us to take. Thank you, darling. I see that. Catching them right quick. All right. I don't know what you mean. Do I have credentials? I'm certified as a coach. I have an art therapy certification. I have a paralegal certification. I have a Reiki certification, but I don't know what kind of credentials you're asking me about. And I certainly have life credentials. Oh, Angela, I know Kim and Angie are getting them out of here as quick as they can. They're getting them out of here as quick as they can. So here we go. I'm staying on topic because they're doing an amazing job, so I can stay on topic. So these unearned guilt is guilt that we carry for things that were never our responsibility. There are some children in here who had to be parents, right, Angela? So some of us had to be the parents, sometimes. Okay. So this often begins in childhood when children become more responsible than they need to be responsible for. So perhaps you were blamed for problems you didn't create. Here's some instances why you may take on unearned guilt. So perhaps there's some problems you didn't create. Maybe you were punished for something you didn't understand. Maybe your play was interrupted. When you were playing as a child, you might have been interrupted by, criticism, spanking, even your own parents fighting, and you can't play when you're afraid when your parents are fighting. Maybe you got in trouble and it actually had little to do with what you'd done. You know, sometimes a parent had a bad day and they were overwhelmed and carried unresolved pain and frustration, and you might have got a transference of guilt. There's a transference of anger, is what that is, and that produces an unearned guilt. Hey, Charles, gun, murder, so that can be, transfer into an unearned guilt when, if you understand there's a transference of anger. Sometimes, if you're a parent, you may have experienced that. Thank you. Thank you. I got this one and I got this one. I got tattoos. I got one down the middle of my back, and yeah, anyway. So a child doesn't have the ability to rationalize, mom is stressed. They don't have the ability to rationalize that. They think it's about them. Daddy's angry about work. They don't have that rationality. A child simply concludes that something must be wrong with me. That's what the children think. And so we grow up apologizing sometimes for things that aren't even ours to apologize for. I know I used to, and I've worked with people who apologize kind of just for breathing. If somebody bumps into them, they apologize. If somebody does, if somebody's, they'll just apologize just because that's what they were taught to do, so they couldn't get in any more trouble, right? Is there that? Angela, codependents are constantly afraid of punishment, even as adults. Hello. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I have some videos on, about punishing other adults and, and the fear of that, because that is a real fear. Thank you, Angela. So Yokus, hello, I'm good. How are you? How are you, Yokuski? All right. Some children became peacemakers, trying to fix problems that were never theirs to solve. Angie T. My daughter does this a lot. She's terribly codependent with friends, and it's hard to watch. Yeah, it is hard. Very hard to watch. John London. Yep, that sounds familiar. Saying sorry when I've done nothing wrong. I know a lot of people do. And a lot of times when I first meet people as clients, they apologize. They start crying because they feel safe, and they start telling us, I ask questions and they start telling me, and they start crying, and then they apologize for crying. And I'm like, look, darling, I'm not going to give you anything to cry about. It's okay. You can cry. You can cry. Crying is healthy. And, did my father punish me unfairly? He did. It's inconsistent, because he did and he didn't. And my mom too. My mom would get frustrated. My mom was one of the types of moms, and some of us are guilty. Some of us have done this, is you get fed up to here, and then she just, this is why we need boundaries too, right, Angela? Is because when people get fed up to here, it's not rational, right? And so children don't understand that. And that can too, I'm glad you asked that question, that too can cause unearned guilt, because you're sitting here and you don't realize that these things were bothering your mother until she blows up. And then it's like, yes. Leo Lee, I have to disagree. I disagree. You have tear ducts, darling. If you got tear ducts, they're put there for a reason. Okay. I think, Leo Lee, that's sad, because I think that that's something that you were taught, is that, and I know a lot of men were taught that. Don't be a sissy. Don't cry. They should not have ever been taught that. They should not have. That's sad, Leo Lee. That I wouldn't wear that as a medal. That's not a medal, darling. And I'm not trying to shame you either, because I want you to be able to cry. I think you need permission to cry. I don't know, but that can't be healthy, holding everything in since you were 5 years old. No, it can't be healthy holding it in since you were 5 years old. Have you not had pain? We all have pain. People die. Our pets die. We cry. We get disappointed, or we get overwhelmed. I cry sometimes just when I'm overwhelmed. And I think that, some men may want to cry too. So there's nothing wrong with crying. So if if you had a dad that told you crying was for sissies, I feel for you, because probably he was taught that. I'm not saying your dad's bad. I'm saying this is part of this generational trauma that has gone down the ages, because you have men and women have tear ducts, and that's what the tear ducts are for. It's to cry. At the least crying because something gets in your eye, but also crying because we are going to be disappointed. We are going to be hurt. Well, I know that I've had my dad die. I've had my son die. I've had my dogs. I've had different dogs, a couple of dogs die, and I cried. I cried when somebody broke up with me. I cried when I broke up with somebody. I've cried when I didn't get what I wanted. I cried when I was overwhelmed. And that's healthy. Digital tripper. Truth. Thank you, Tony. I've been told, or did you tell me that before, Tony? I've been told that I look like that, look like her. That's a compliment. Thank you. So some children become peacemakers, trying to fix what was never theirs to solve. Others learn to walk on eggshells, constantly scanning for danger, right? Oh, the trolls are out this night. Girls, I hope y'all hear. Others learn to walk on, thank you. Others learn to walk on eggshells, constantly scanning for danger. They begin taking responsibility for others' emotions, reactions, disappointments, and happy. Now, I don't care if they compliment me, but if they're like talking some crazy things, they got to go. If they compliment me, that's fine. We like compliments. But if they're like talking crazy, hey, Ramon, how are you? So, unearned guilt can also come from parents, perpetrators, siblings, friends, parents, teachers, bosses, and authority figures who consciously or unconsciously place responsibility where it doesn't belong. Thank you, Ramon. Donald. Thank you, Donald. That words experience. I had to work on my words. I had to learn more words, because learning more words, thank you for the thumbs up, y'all. Learning more words helps us to have more experiences, helps us to have more feelings. So thank you for that. I work with words and things. I used to not have as much. When I had limited words, I had limited experiences. Learning more words gives me more experiences, but it also learns to define the experiences that I've had rather than just feeling limited with those words that I had before. Leoli, I know it should be there. Maybe I'm too tired to care. Sometimes, Leoli, we build like a wall around ourselves. I know I did it, and I tried to act like I didn't care about things that I cared about, and so I built this false esteem wall around me, acting like, oh, this doesn't hurt me. This doesn't hurt me, but it really did hurt. And what I did was I wasn't living a whole and full life when I was feeling that way, but I didn't know it, like somebody said with these words. As I didn't know how to describe things. I just knew what I didn't want to happen. And these things that I didn't want to happen, what was that? These things that I didn't want to happen, run my life. And it built this false esteem of me acting like things didn't hurt me. I had to learn how to say, this hurt my feelings when this happened. I told a minister at our church one time, just something he kept saying over and over was a trigger for me. Because somebody mentioned earlier how religion can cause a lot of guilt too. Is he kept saying something over and over that was triggering for me. And I knew that it wasn't bothering everybody, but it was bothering me because how I learned to listen in the church. So I went up to the preacher, minister after church, and I told him, I said, I've noticed that you quit saying this and you started saying this. And like in this service, you said it 4 times. And he's like, okay. So of course, the next service I come to, he calls me out in front of the whole church saying, Stacy, and he said something else, but it was okay, but yeah. So sometimes there's certain words that can even trigger us, and learning what our triggers are. Angela, my mother and her sisters were punished even when they didn't do anything. That's why my mother became codependent. Yeah, walking on eggshells, like we were talking about there. We're just trying to do things right, just trying. We end up living our lives where we feel like, I'm just trying, right? I feel for them. Leoli, life goes on crying doesn't solve anything. Well, Leoli, I don't know how wide open your eyes are, but I can tell you my eyes are bright and shiny and white because I cried those tears that left clouds in front of them where I wasn't seeing life and everything else really clear. I can't say that that's your case because I don't know you. But I can say for me, crying does solve some things. Sure does. Actus in the house. It's good to see you, Actus. Donald, now you're learning. The universe loves you. Yes, the universe does love us. Leoli, I don't feel sadness is because I know I can't change the fact of anything. It's just a part of life. It's not meant to be all sunshine and rainbows. It is not meant to be all sunshine and rainbows. That's why we cry, darling. That's why we cry. It doesn't mean that you don't accept life just because you cry. No, it don't mean that. Rodolfo Actus, no, but I hope to be president of Turkey one day. Y'all are cool. Donald, always speak your mind. Yes. Thank you, Donald. Rodolfo. Okay. All right. Leoli, I say stop being, I'm not perfect. I say let's evolve. Let's let the chips fall where they may. Reject the basic assumptions of civilization, especially the importance of material possessions. Well, hello, Bobby Brooks. I'm going to get back to my notes here. I enjoy your comments, so that's why I have notes, is so that I can read your comments and get to know you. I appreciate that. And then I'll get to look at these notes. Okay, so we're talking about unearned guilt can also come from parents, perpetrators. I already said that, right? Siblings, friends, and like I said a while ago, church, authority figures. Hello, Emma. So over time, people conditioned this way often feel guilty simply for having needs. Simply for having needs. They're afraid to ask for what they need. I work with people too that are afraid to ask for what they need. Saying no, disappointing someone, or choosing themselves. Sometimes people are afraid to do that. So they become vulnerable to guilt trips when this happens, to manipulation and emotional control, because guilt feels familiar. They're used to feeling guilty. So they take on everybody else's guilt because they've learned how to what? Be a scapegoat. Thank y'all for being here. Thanks, X Lip Gloss and Leo Lee. Well, you're all entitled to your opinion, Leo Lee. But I'm glad that you're here. So some may even become grateful for crumbs of approval because they learned that not being blamed felt like love, right? Actus, King of Greece. Well, that would be cool. I've got to get to Europe first. But yes, Bronx, you are the great one. Thank you, Bronx. It's good to see you. So we're talking about unearned guilt and guilt this evening. So others wounded by years of misplaced blame may become highly reactive or punish those, right, Angelo? Punish those they perceive as guilty, projecting unresolved pain into current relationships. So sometimes when we had a transference of anger, we might have thought that it's okay to transfer anger to other people. Codependents don't allow other people to feel anger because they remember their parents' anger and punishment in childhood. Yeah, or if they do allow other people to feel anger. I know that when I was codependent, I allowed other people to feel anger, but I took it on. I thought it's my fault. It's my fault. So what? I perceived the guilt myself, right? So this is why I know about this, because I had to work on this stuff too. So I took it as my fault. And it didn't help that, in recovery, I had a sponsor, and I told you all this, that I would call her and tell her, what I was dealing with. And she'd say, well, what was your part, honey? So I always thought everything was my part for a long time. Then when I got into therapy or coaching, I had a coach and therapist myself, then I learned that not everything was my fault. And so I learned how to set boundaries because not everything's your fault. And so that's what we'll end up with when we get to the end of this. But first, clarifying, because a lot of times if people don't understand guilt and unearned guilt, they don't know if they need to, which one they need to be responsible for, boundaries or an amends, because both of them call for us to be responsible. And so we're going to talk about how we can pause and know if we have unearned guilt or real guilt, because sometimes just because you feel guilty doesn't mean that you're guilty. And sometimes people do feel guilty, but they don't know how to amend that. They learned about blaming other people when they're guilty. So if we're going to stop these cycles, then we have to learn how to deal with them. Lord Cool Whip Suburbia, learn to accept the blame without consequences. I don't know about that. I don't believe in accepting blame anymore, but I don't believe in defending myself, but I'm not going to just accept blame. I'm going to speak my truth. Stacy, I go to sleep. Keep up the good work, guys. Pay attention to Stacy and we'll benefit. Thank you, Actus. I'm glad that we got to see you this evening. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you. You get you some blessed and regenerated rest. So, got to find my notes. Where am I at? Others wounded by years of misplaced blame may become highly reactive and punish those they perceive as guilty, projecting unresolved pain onto current relationships. And this is what we just talked about, that transference of anger. Does anybody here know what I'm talking about with transference of anger? John London, anger can be healthy when it's communicated properly and for good reason, but for the transference, blaming other people, you're exactly right, John London. Sometimes we are not always happy, and it calls for us to learn how to communicate, not punish other adults, not be passive aggressive, because I'm going to talk about passive aggressive and aggressive aggressiveness. Passive aggressive is when we get angry and don't say anything, and earlier, I was saying that earlier I went someplace and with one of my best friends, and we ended up sitting someplace for 2 hours and I started getting hangry, y'all, because I was hungry. She told me, we're going to lunch into Costco, and ended up on a detour. And when we got done, she's like, that didn't take too long. I'm like, we sat there for 2 hours. She says, no, it wasn't 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, it was 2 hours. So, but I love her, and it's just letting people know that I have the capacity to be angry. I'm not a doormat, right? That's the thing, is we can let people know. We don't have to lash at people. We don't have to punish people. We don't have to blame people, but to let them know I'm hangry. I'm hangry. And that's, then she knows, okay, I need to be mindful that Stacy may get hangry, because there's a lot of people, they don't let me get hangry anymore, because you let me get hangry, y'all see some gremlin coming out and stuff. So like John says, it can be. I see it a lot in families. Some are very angry people. I know some people were just taught to be angry, and that's very sad that some people were just taught to be angry. And in a way, do you feel like, John London, that they are trying to protect themselves, but they don't really get to fully live their life? Because I think a lot of people walk around with anger because they're afraid if they don't give off that energy that they're going to get hurt. So it's really sad. Rodolfo, passive aggression is a fun game. It is not. I disagree, Rodolfo, with that. I mean, it can be for a while, but learning to communicate's more fun. And a lot of us didn't learn how. A lot of us did learn passive aggression. And the thing is that we may do something to get even with somebody else. I know I did this in my youth. Back in my youth, I used to do this passive aggressive stuff to get even with people. And then when they called me out and said, hey, Stacy, did you do this? I'd be like, no, I wouldn't even own it. I'd be lying. And then that caused a whole other shame to be stacked on my soul that I had to grow from. So when I say I dig stuff up off the soul, I had to learn to dig it off of my soul, and I help others to dig this stuff off of our soul. Because when we're passive aggressive and we do something and then we have to lie about it, We have enough guilt that we did something, because later on when we calm down, we maybe think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then when we get called out, it's like, oh no, I'm going to cover this up, and then that covered, anytime we're covering stuff up, we're covering up our soul, y'all. And it doesn't feel good. And that's why we just feel like guilt. We'll feel that guilt that I'm talking about. So that is earned guilt when we're doing passive aggressive stuff and aggressive stuff. So that is what we call earned guilt, is when we know we're doing something wrong, when we know we're doing something wrong and we don't know how to own it. We don't know how to express it. We don't know how to amend it, as we mature more, because it's the inner child oftentimes that will act out of the aggression and passive aggression. That's some inner child pain a lot of times. And I did it too. But I'm just saying that from my own experience, I know that buried my soul, because then I couldn't even own it and I had to lie about it. And anytime I lie about something, I'm burying something. Now, I know I'm probably the only liar up in here. I was. I don't lie now because I'm going to be like, my conscience says, no, Stacy, you can't lie. Codependents do feel responsible for everybody's feelings. Hello, Pradeep bro. I am good. I rap. You love blaming others for all your mistakes. It works for you. All right, then. Rodolfo. I have a bad habit of being passive aggressive. Thank you, Angie, for being honest. I was passive aggressive too. I just didn't know how to express my anger, right? So sometimes when we're passive aggressive, we just don't know how to express our anger. Because, like John London says, anger is healthy. We're going to get angry. Sometimes we're rightfully so angry, not self righteous anger, but rightfully so. And we need to be able to learn to express our anger. And I had to learn to express my anger and not be passive aggressive, because it does make us feel guilty. Harsh Pandit, have a good day too. Thank you. Pradeep, bro. Well, thank you, Lord Cool Whip. Accepting consequences is best. Yes. We got to accept our consequences. Jim C., hello. Hello. Hey, Shalajaran. Shalajaran. Sorry. You are very welcome, Angela. Did you feel that people were blaming you when they were angry, Stacy? Yes, sometimes they did blame me when they were angry. And sometimes I did. Sometimes I would feel blamed, and it didn't mean that I was. Sometimes people are venting. But when I was in my codependency, I would think that I needed to fix it, right, Angela? As I used to think that I had to fix it. Now I know when somebody's angry, I don't have to fix it. No, I don't have to fix it. Hello, Don. It's good to see you. What about you? Did you feel like that? I mean, when we're children, we do feel that, when we feel that people are blaming us. Yeah, but yeah, I have been blamed as an adult, and it's like, oh, so we're going to talk about that as we get into this, about if this is even ours. That's why I talk about we have to learn responsibility, because if we're being unjustly blamed, we need to be able to set a boundary and say, you know what, I'm not going to participate in this, and this isn't mine to own, and then be able to say, like I've been blamed. Like one time I had a boss that told me, I thought I told you to call this person, but they had told me to call this person. And then they had told me not to call that person. And then they called me and said, I told you to call this person. Why wouldn't you call this person that I told you to call? And I was taken aback because my mother had just had a stroke. And I was like, what the hell is this person talking to me like this? And then I told her, I said, excuse me, my mom just had a stroke and she just bypassed that. And she's like, I just don't understand. And then I had to remember. I was like, I remembered because I was thrown off. And I'm like, no, you told me not to call her after you told me to call her. I wasn't just going to take that on. She didn't hear nothing because she just wanted to be mad and she didn't want to hear me, so it's like, but I wasn't going to sit there and take that. Well, I did, but I still said I'm not guilty of this. Yeah, for one. For another, it feels like they have a short fuse and have been accustomed to taking it out on others, lashing out. They have some antisocial personality problem. Yes, they're afraid of being hurt, is what it is. And if they walk around with that kind of energy, they want people to be afraid of them to a degree. But then they also may be trying to prove, I've seen this where they're trying to just keep from getting hurt. But I've also seen where they've got this thing, this predominant thought that nobody likes them or that people are bad. And when they walk around with that thought, they're trying to prove that too. I just talked about that on story time, remember, is that like they're trying to prove the negative too. People, you'd think people would be walking around trying to prove I'm good enough. And so we do with the actions that we do. But we are also trying to prove I'm not good enough with our mixed messages. So we can have some mixed messages going on if we have a low self-esteem. And if we're walked on eggshells or was blamed for things and these kind of things, that gives your self-esteem a beating. John London, I've learned to never bury my feelings anymore, but I definitely did the same. Yeah, thanks, John London. I know. This is what I love about you all is we are all on the same page, learning and growing and living. Rodolfo, I don't lie much. Well, that's good, Rodolfo. I did, and I had to have my truth chakra. I got my chakras balanced, and there for a while it would get it. But sometimes I didn't know when I was lying to myself. You know, that was the big chakra right there, and the chakras. Don, I don't think it's wrong for a man to cry. Many are told to man up when they're growing up. I know that's what I was saying, Don. I think that it's sad that poor, men that's an unrealistic expectation, I think. Angela, I don't feel guilty if I didn't hurt someone on purpose. No, I do make an amends when sometimes I think like even today, like I had brought a cake to the meeting that I went to, and somebody else had brought a cake, and I didn't acknowledge their cake. So I had to call back, because I bought the cake that I liked. And so I didn't really know that they got the cake. I thought someone else got the cake. And so I called back and I said, hey, I apologize. I want to thank you for getting the cake. That was very thoughtful. And I apologize that I didn't acknowledge the cake, Hello, Shandial. Kaya Shandial. Don Woodland projected it onto you, Stacy. Yes, sometimes people project it onto you, that guilt. My daddy used to say, because I had a boyfriend that used to accuse me of doing things when we were young. And my dad used to always say, the guilty dog barks first. And it's kind of true that sometimes when people are accusing you of doing something, they're doing it already. John London, we can bring out the worst in people. I can relate to that story, and the way some coworkers act is astounding sometimes. I know, right? Crazy making, right, John London? Crazy making, telling you why didn't you do this, and chewing you out when they told you not to do this. And yeah. Thank you, Vinny. So back to the notes. Thank y'all so much. I do love these comments, and I love your participation, and I thank you. Darling, I'm still a queen. 501 Big Guy, empty drum makes the most sound. I like that. Empty drum makes the most sound. I haven't heard that one before. All right. So when you have been, I'm going to say that about the guilty dog one day. The guilty dog barks first. Or the empty drum makes the most sound. So over time, people conditioned this way often feel guilty simply for having needs, saying no, disappointing someone, choosing themselves. I know that I said this before, but for those that just come on here, become vulnerable to guilt trips, manipulation, emotional control because guilt feels familiar. So some may be grateful for crumbs and of approval because they learned that being blamed felt like love. Others wounded by fear, by years of misplaced blame, may become highly reactive and punish those they perceive as guilty, projecting unresolved pain onto current relationships. Earned guilt's different. Earned guilt is healthy emotional signal, like John London, like we're saying, earned guilt is a healthy emotional signal. Like, if I do something wrong, if I'm passive aggressive, I don't do passive aggressive stuff like I used to. But first I had to learn what is passive aggressive stuff. Because not all my passive aggressive stuff meant that I lied. One time passive aggressive stuff just meant I turned back into this inner child that when I was hurt, had felt the same childhood wound. I did something like I shrunk, and shrinking didn't empower me. So I was shrinking. So I've told you all the story about when the boyfriend told me, Stacy, if you want to talk to me, you're going to have to speak up. And what I heard was my dad saying, come on, spit it out, spit it out, you know. So that's what I heard, but that wasn't what was said. The man was just trying to get me to speak up. So what did I do in passive aggressiveness, which he called me out on, was as I started speaking lower because I went back to that little girl talking to the man that was saying, come on, spit it out, because I couldn't holler at my dad. Rick Young, you're guilty of being guilty. Well, if you're guilty, you are guilty of being guilty. So Don Woodland, yep. Empty vessels make the most noise. Exactly. Shalajaran, amen. Thank you. So John London, I heard that version of saying Don. Yep. So perhaps we acted out in anger. Maybe we were aggressive or passive aggressive. Avoiding responsibility is guilt. Yep. We need to either take responsibility for setting boundaries, loving boundaries, not ones that just when you've had it up to here. Because a lot of people, when they have it up to here, they think, I'm setting boundaries. Get on the phone, text him. Bring me my keys back. Bring me this back. Bring me this back. And don't ever take my charger again. And don't, you know what I mean? That's not loving boundaries, y'all. For me, the boundaries also aren't squealing out the tires on your car, yelling so the neighbors can hear you. That's not loving boundaries either. We're going to talk about those, okay? Scuba dude. I'm a dude. He's okay. All right. So, being able to own if we're aggressive, passive aggressive, maybe we felt withheld affection. What if we were the ones withholding affection? I know I did that before, giving people the business. I used to give people the business quite often. That's passive aggressive too. Because passive aggressive means we're simply not sharing our words and using our big girl or big boy words. We're not saying what we need, not saying when the girl's holding a sign up on the corner and your boyfriend's gawking. Why do you, first off, I had to learn that they're not going to jump out the car and go do the bathing suit girl. I had learned that it was disrespectful. And if you think that it's disrespectful for you, but maybe he wasn't looking that much. And maybe sometimes we just like to look at people, but I used to give him the business. And instead of saying, it hurts my feelings or feel disrespectful when you're looking at this woman on the corner with that little car wash sign, and if we can't say that, then maybe we need to check ourselves and see if it means that much to us. If it's an old pain, like my daddy, if it's an old pain, or an old language that you learned, does it really bother you? Because I had to learn what really bothered me. RC, okay. Well, okay, big guy. A silent treatment, passive aggressive. It is passive aggressive, big guy. Sometimes what is not silent, sometimes we do need to take a space and be silent. Sometimes we don't need to. I need to process my feelings first. Sometimes I get my feelings hurt and I need to process my feelings hurt, but not give people the business. Does that make sense, y'all? So if I had to learn this. So if I need to process my feelings, I need to tell somebody who's concerned about my feelings, I'm just processing my feelings right now. My feelings kind of got hurt a little bit, and I don't know if they need to be hurt a little bit. I'm going to process my feelings, and then, if we need to, we can talk about it, right? Sometimes I just need to take space, and if it's my wound, I have to heal my wound. Another person is not responsible for healing my wound. Another person I don't need to bleed on somebody else if they didn't cut me. That's saying, don't bleed on those that didn't cut you. So I don't need to do that. The silent treatment is a big one. And I used to do the silent treatment too, give people the business. Now I don't give people the business. I say, I'm just trying to process some things because I don't know if I'm just, if it's me or if I really need to put much weight into this or not. It's okay to say that and to take our space and just to figure it out or even figure the words out, talk to a girlfriend. Because maybe we're having a bad day. And if we're having a bad day, It could just be stuff compounding and compounding and compounding to where we're starting to build a story. And it may be a true story and it might not. So it's definitely having somebody to process it with. Yeah, it's called stall and think about shit. Yeah, sometimes we just need to think about shit, RC. I agree. Quick to anger ain't good because it could just be a reflex. Could just be a reflex. I can't believe it when I hear about couples not talking for a week. I know, right? Yeah, because it's like there's some wound there. And is it the wounds, the person's wound? Did the person actually wound, or is this something that's deeper? You know, this is what I love about my job in coaching, is that we get to dig deeper rather than, because usually we will self-sabotage or something like that. This could be self-sabotaging. We need to learn to communicate, because when couples, that's the biggest thing with couples, is learning to communicate with each other. Lord Colwick's Suburbia. A family member being murdered is a generational curse upon those. I know it's going to cause a lot of pain, and it's going to have a ripple effect, Lord Colwick. But I don't know that I would call it a curse. I don't know, because I don't know enough about it, is all that I'm saying. I'm not denying your reality. I'm just saying I don't know enough about that. I don't know what that means. So perhaps we acted out in anger. Okay, so maybe withheld affection, manipulated, got even, acted selfishly, ignored the impact of our behavior, or failed to be honest with ourselves. Earned guilt invites self-reflection. It asks. So these are things, when I say processing, these are things that we can ask ourselves. Did I act with integrity? Passive aggressive means I'm going behind somebody's back doing something, or just giving them the business, trying to make somebody feel responsible for my pain. Did I violate my values? Do I need to make amends? The challenge is that many people confuse the two forms of guilt. Angela, you can solve all conflicts with communication except betrayal. Yeah, there's no excuse for betrayal. I do believe people can work on something, with betrayal sometimes not, but it's going to take two people. It can't just be one person working on it, especially, when somebody's been betrayed. Say if it's a male or a female. If one of those, or, a female and a female or whatever, but if one of those has been betrayed and the one who's been betrayed wants to work on it, this is typically what will happen, is the one that's been betrayed wants to work on it, but the betrayer will not want to work on it. They don't want to look at themselves. There are some people in this world who will not look at themselves. They are not going to. We don't need to be a victim to those people, but we also don't need to realize we don't need to guilt them. We don't need to make it about a victim villain thing to where they're guilty and a villain. We just need to recognize ourselves. Yes, it does go both ways. Yeah. They do have to work on it too, because you cannot fix a relationship all by yourself. Betrayal trauma is a hard one. I know that I've been betrayed before, and I was willing to work on it. I was willing to work on it with therapy, because Angie and I know a guy he says, you can't, when you've been betrayed, that relationship ended. That relationship ended when you were betrayed, because what you thought that relationship was is obviously not what it was. So if you're going to stay in that relationship, you have to work with a coach or a therapist or somebody, because there's some fracture in that relationship. And that fracture isn't just going to heal itself by, a lot of times this is what happens, is that people will say, we're just going to work on it. Really? How are you working on it? With the same thinking that, the same thing. It's going to be the same thing. This is why people say it's the same thing. They said, and then they feel betrayed again. They're betraying themselves, see? That's where we betray ourselves, and is when we believe somebody's going to work on it with the same thinking that they didn't. Mr. Inappropriate, if you email me in the description box, then we can talk about that, okay? Like soy. Okay, that must have not been a good comment. I don't know, Stephen. Is it on topic? Spiritual awakening, Scorpio. Same stinking thinking. Yeah, exactly right. Spiritual awakening, Scorpio. It's the same thinking. If you don't get an outsider to help you process this, because there has to be somebody to help two people process something. There has to be some people to help somebody process why did you do that, knowing the risk that you were taking. And then the other one, what do you need? What makes you want to continue to work on this? Knowing that this person did this, what would keep you working on it? You know, John London, yeah, I betrayed myself that way for many years. I feel shame and guilt for that when I shouldn't. Yeah, sometimes we do betray ourselves, and that's when we are burying our soul too, right, John London? But the thing is you were meant to shine. We all make mistakes. Not all of us betray, or we may be perceived betrayed by somebody else. I don't know. Spiritual awakening, Scorpio, hamster wheel, round and round we go. Someone's got to change their perspective. Really, both do. Angie T, living the whole undoing process. Yes, we have to unlearn, because I know for me, this is what happened. So somebody betrayed me, and I said, well, we're going to have to go to therapy if we're going to work on this. I'm willing to work on it if you are, but I'm not going to work on it by myself. I love you too, John London. Thank you. And I'm like, I'm not going to work on this by myself. So we went to therapy a couple of times. And then the third time, this guy, he just didn't even call me that week. And I called him. I'm like, hey, are you going to therapy? It became our therapy day. I'm like, are you going to therapy? He's like, no. I'm like, okay. And then he didn't call me back, and I didn't call him back because, yeah, it's like, no. He showed me that he wasn't interested in working on it. And so he wasn't going to, he did try to come back. He did try to come back later. He didn't want to go to therapy. He just wanted to come back. And it's like, oh, no. No. So, you have to stick with your guns because nobody's going to change if they're not willing to change. So they carried unearned guilt while denying earned guilt. Sometimes people do. Yes, somebody did cheat on me, Angela. I've had a few people cheat on me. I have. I sure have. But the good thing was I wasn't stalking them. I later did see, because we can tell when somebody's cheating. We know. They quit rubbing our feet. They start talking crazy to us, blaming us for stuff. We know. And so, yes, I did find out. So, and when they cheat, I ain't interested because I'm not a cheater. So I'm not, no. Joe, I don't know if you're talking, I think I know what you're talking about. We're on topic. There you go, Joe. Okay. So, healing begins when we become honest enough to ask, is this guilt truly mine? Am I responsible for what happened? If somebody cheats on you, you're not responsible for that. If you are, if they want to work on it, if you want to work on it and they want to work on it, if you feel a little responsible or guilt, some people will. Lord Coolwick, Suburbia. Well, I used to love a broken man too, but not no more. They need to heal first, because I'm not going to heal another. I can't. I've proved to myself I am not going to be able to heal a partner. I want a partner to come at me whole. Well, thank you. All right. I need a partner who's whole, because I got less 10 years behind me than I do in front of me. I ain't got time for that. I like my house too much. I'm not coming out unless they got some qualities that I'm interested in. And it ain't being broken. I'm not trying to fix people. unless they're paying me and I can't even fix them. They have to want to fix themselves, be willing, and we can process some things. So, am I responsible for what happened, or am I carrying something that doesn't belong to me but belongs to somebody else? It's like we can't really ever get into the mindset of a narcissist psychopath and their thought processes. They think too differently. Absolutely, John London. Absolutely. We cannot. And they aren't trying to hear us. They can't work on something with us because they lack empathy. And so a person who lacks empathy is not going to realize how you feel. They don't care how this made you feel. They don't care if you say, it hurt my feelings when you said this. And they will probably call you names to gain control over you too. And so when they do this, they're trying to gain control. They're not trying to understand you. They may give you a breadcrumb of trying to understand you, but what you say can and will be used against you, and you learn not to trust them or yourself when you're dealing with a psychopath or a narcissist person. All right, so now that we understand the difference between earned guilt and unearned guilt, there's an important question. How do we know which one we're feeling, right? Is it earned or unearned? So because when guilt shows up, most of us don't stop and investigate it. We just start either apologizing or we start defending. If you're dealing with a narcissist or psychopath, they're going to turn it right back on you. That's what they're going to do. Then you may end up sitting here having to defend yourself, right, Angela? You may sit here having to defend yourself when it was you that was actually, you were asking a question, just asking a question, and you end up feeling guilty. So when guilt shows up, most of us don't stop investigate it. We react, we apologize, we comply, we explain ourselves, we defend ourselves, or we shut down. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. Robbie, hello. I'm glad you made it here. I'm still talking. Jen 2000. How do I heal over the loss of my one and only child? I couldn't bring myself to go to counseling soon afterwards, and now I regret it. Jen, that takes time. I don't know. I lost my son too, and so it takes time, and I don't know that you're ever going to truly heal because love never dies. Love never dies, and as long as love never dies, and their birthday comes and they're not here, and their death date comes, we have grief. But what we do is we transform through that grief. I don't know about you, but I was able to recognize that I get to grief and grace walk hand in hand if we allow it. If we allow it. If you want counseling now, I work with grief too, and my email is in the description box. So if you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to walk with you through your grief. I can help teach you how to process your transformation. But my son was named after my great grandma. She was 96 years old when she passed away, and my son was named after her son, and she lost him when he was 3 years old. And so I heard her when she was 90s talking about this son that she lost, and I'm like, don't worry, great grandma. Now she wasn't 90 when he was 3, so we don't forget them. We're not going to forget them. I'm like, don't worry, great grandma. I will name my son after him, and I did. And I've lost my son, but I know that grief we don't heal necessarily. We transform through grief. We transform through grief. We still remember those days. We still remember them even without those days. There's times grief just hits you like a brick. You can be in a store and hear that music. Now, sometimes I actually smile because I take that as a sign that he's with me when I hear that music. So sometimes I think it's a sign, and sometimes I cry because I know he's not physically here. And I miss him. Next month, he would have been 34. So, but we just transform through grief. I don't know that I don't tell people you're going to heal through grief. Angela, narcissists blame you as a distraction to avoid accountability for sure. Absolutely. Alan. Energy vampires circle good people. They sure do. They sure do. Thank you. JR, hello. It's good to see you. I'm glad you were able to make it. We're talking about earned guilt and unearned guilt this evening. Angela, did you have obsessive compulsive behaviors as a codependent? Sometimes I did. I've gotten a lot better. I used to worry, the kind that I had wasn't terrible. I was, nice and organized. I'm not really like freaky clean right now. I live comfortably, but I do have things pretty organized. But I did worry about getting things done and done right. And even my handwriting, I had to have perfect handwriting for a long time. Now my handwriting's just kind of, it's not as perfect. Some days I like it to be prettier than others, but you're very welcome, Jen. You're very welcome. All righty. So back to the topic. The problem that is that guilt is just a feeling. Feelings are important, but they don't always tell the truth about responsibility. Are you responsible for either the boundaries that you need to set with somebody because maybe somebody's trying to make you feel guilty? Or do you need to, that would call for you to set boundaries. If you have, that's unearned guilt. But guilt, we just need to learn how to make an amends for. And it doesn't mean just apologizing. How many, of us have said, I'm sorry, because that was what we learned. That was a learned behavior. I'm sorry. And then we did the same thing again, and the same thing again, and the same thing again. Sometimes we do that. And you're not stupid. We just don't know how to make an amends. And I had to learn how to make an amends. I just had to learn how to make an amends. It was like I had to learn how, when I could see that my behavior hurt somebody else, when I was guilty and my behavior hurt somebody else, I had to learn how to apologize for what I did, not just say I'm sorry, but to say, if I talked bad about somebody, say, you know what, I should not have said something I said about you. And or if I couldn't tell them that, then I could say, because I'm talking about from the time I was young too, I'm not talking about recently. But if I were to say something about somebody, then maybe go back to the person even that I said it to and say, you know what, I need to reflect. I've reflected on this, and I should not have said this about them. Because sometimes people do that, right? Sometimes people will say something, they don't know what they're talking about. I've had it done to me. Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate that. Yeah, John London, grief like your loss that never completely goes away, but hurts less every year. Yes. Yes, grief and grace walk hand in hand, John London. Thank you very much, Calvin. My son's name was Calvin. John London, faith in sons and God and the afterlife is very beautiful. It is. See, even this Calvin coming on here and everything, like my son's name was Calvin. So that could be like a sign, right? So I'm Jen. Sorry, I think I was off topic. I will sit down. Oh, you don't need to apologize, Jen. I'm glad that I got to share that with you. So thank you, Ramon. Angela, codependents apologize to avoid conflicts. Yes. Yeah. So do we need to apologize, or do we need to set a boundary? Codependents need to learn boundaries. I had to learn boundaries because I apologized for a lot of things too. Hard to please guy. You have a reflection in your glasses. I know, hard to please guy. I'll be glad when I can get this surgery and I don't have to wear glasses again. I have the lamp reflection in my glasses. My bird is codependent, but my bird's being independent right now. Joseph Leon, and there is no codependence. Oh, yes, there's some codependence. Daniel Murphy. Are we not all codependent on each other? Obviously, there's a limit, but I think modern society demands that we lean on each other. Daniel, that's a great concept. I mean, that's a great topic. Thank you for saying that, because yes, codependency, though, is promoted. A lot of people think they know what codependency is, but they don't know what codependency is. Codependency is when it's not a mutual equal relationship in codependency. Codependency is unhealthy because codependency is somebody who doesn't love themselves a lot of times, and they don't love themselves because they didn't get to be seen or heard. So a lot of codependent people will be trying to people please because they don't get to learn themselves. At least me. I'm speaking for me right now, okay, with codependence. I didn't get to be seen or heard. I mean, I did get seen or heard, but I felt like I had to say what was expected of me to say and do what it was expected of me to do, that I didn't think for myself, and so that was codependent on my part. Was I tried to please my mother. I tried to please my dad for a while, but after a while I got tired of trying to please him. But I tried to please my mom. I tried to please my boyfriends. I tried to become whatever anybody wanted me to be so that I could be loved. That's codependency. That's not that's not healthy. We aren't meant unity and community, we are destined for it. That's what I try to promote here on this channel is unity and community, because a lot of codependents will feel like a victim because a lot of them have been treated like a doormat and things like this. But when we get into taking responsibility for our codependence, when we realize that we're trying to manipulate people into liking us, that we're not letting people get to know us, and that we're covering up this on our soul. So we're still innocent. And, as bad as I hate to say it, y'all have heard me say it before, the narcissist and the psychopath are people who have experienced some pain too, at least maybe in the early parts of their life. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they were born that way. But I believe that a lot of the people with narcissistic personalities had experienced a lot of pain growing up. And so they have that big protective shell over, like I was talking about before. And, for me, I had that when I was in my codependency. I thought everything was about me. The way that you behaved was about me. The way that you behaved was about me. And that's why we apologize a lot too, because we are micromanaging other people. We're sitting here thinking that they're thinking about us when they're not even thinking about us. We're thinking that we have to fix everything when we don't have to fix everything. We're thinking that we have to do certain things. So it's not all about me. I had to learn about my expectations, that if I didn't vocalize my words, then I didn't, I had unreasonable expectations to just expect that people should take care of me. Because it wasn't that I wanted them to take care of me necessarily financially. I just wanted them to acknowledge me. But even when they did acknowledge me, I didn't acknowledge that they acknowledged me. So they too felt like nothing they ever did was good enough also. Y'all know, some of y'all experience this. I know somebody has to be behind that camera, not in your head. Yep. Yep. When we get honest with ourselves, when we quit lying to ourselves. But I did feel a lot of guilt in my codependency. So yes, we are destined for unity and community, but we're also supposed to not be any less than anybody else. And so a lot of codependent people feel less than somebody else. I had to learn in my codependency what was my business, God's business, and somebody else's business, and stay in my business, because a lot of times I had this pain that was buried in me, but I would be projecting it onto other people and trying to fix their stuff when I hadn't fixed my own stuff, when I hadn't done my stuff. I would be trying to tell people about, things that when I hadn't worked on myself yet, because I was trying to distract from my own problems, you know. So the problem with guilt is that guilt is just a feeling. Feelings are important. Was that helpful, Daniel? Live, love, dream, survive in the fire, still waiting for the happy joy. Shall I go out and find it or work on myself? I still say I'm sorry, and then under my breath I say, oh. Then under my breath I say, not sorry. So have you figured out, live, love, dreams, why you're apologizing? What are you apologizing for when you say you're sorry? Because maybe it's just a habit. I know for a lot of us, it's just a habit. I'm sorry, because I've caught some of my clients, and they're just like, it's a habit, just saying they're sorry. So when we catch ourselves, it's like, is this a habit? Am I taking responsibility for something that's not mine to take? And where did I learn this? And why do I do this? You don't have to be terrible, like micromanaging yourself, but it helps us to understand the process, to be able to unlearn those learned behaviors with grace. Joseph Leon, you should be able to talk through problems with others. Yes, that would be nice to be able to talk through problems with others, wouldn't it? Angela, Grinch isn't codependent. He's a life coach like Stacy. Thank you, Angela. He does think so. He's gotten less codependent than he used to be. John London, you can get anti-reflective glasses as surgery, isn't? I do need to get some anti-reflective glasses, don't I, John London? Let me write that down on my list here. Where did my pen go? See? There's one. Grinch might have knocked it off my desk. The one I thought I had sitting here. Okay, I wrote that down because if I don't write it down, I forget things. Thank you. That's a good thing. Robbie. Hi, Robbie. I'm glad that you're here. Daniel, God sent you to me. Thank you very much for your wisdom. You are very welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I hope you'll subscribe because I come on here on Monday nights and Friday nights, and I come on here on Wednesday mornings and Sunday mornings. So I hope you've subscribed so you can be a part of this community. They're an awesome group of people. Joseph Leon, isolation. Live, love, dreams. Hard to be myself when I still don't really know me. The 2.5 years sober me. It does take time. Live, love, dreams. I know because when I was drinking too, I just tried to get along. Just tried to get along. Whoever, whatever. I just wanted to get along with people. And healing that trauma helps us to know who's for us and who's not, because just because there's some other sober people, sometimes they don't necessarily match your energy and what you want. So I encourage you to make a list, of the kind of people that, you feel comfortable with. When you see, I really feel comfortable with this person because of why. And then you know why, and know that you probably have that quality within yourself. And if you don't, I told people this morning in my group, I was like, the ladies in the group taught me how to walk and to talk and to act like a natural lady, to act like a lady, because I didn't know. I didn't know how to. I was a tomboy growing up, and I had to learn people had to teach me how to behave because I just became what everybody wanted me to be when I was in my drinking days and things. Daniel, I am. Yes, very. Okay, good. I'm glad that you subscribed. Live, love, dreams. Have you felt we're undeserving or underachieving? Yes. Yes, I have felt that before. It really comes from that low self-esteem because for a while we feel guilty even for the drinking. Is I see that a lot of people will feel guilty even for the drinking or using drugs, whatever it is, the food, whatever. Sometimes we'll feel guilty for that, even for that taking that part of our life. And so, yeah, I did feel like undeserving and underachieving before because I didn't feel smart enough. I had all this stuff in my brain. This is why I love to get on here with you all, is that it's to give you hope because I needed that hope too. People had to give me that hope. And when you get something like that, sharing it, because I thought I was stupid and I'm not stupid. And a lot of people get called lazy, and you're not lazy. Sometimes we just shut down when we start learning to understand our central nervous system. Yes. I tell others not to apologize, to say thank you instead. Yes. Yeah. Angie, I wish I wasn't so messed up. Darling, I got that tattoo on my back that says we are all mad here. There's hope for us all. There is hope. There is hope. And I'm glad that you all are here because we get to talk about these things and realize that we are not alone, and that there is hope, that we get to decide, am I guilty? Because you might not even be guilty. You might have been carrying guilt around for years like I did and realize I'm not guilty for everything that I think I'm guilty of. And then to learn how to make an amends for what I am guilty of, just like I did. I had to learn to make an amends. I'm not perfect. I'm not. And I had to learn how to make an amends. Like I told you, I told somebody I apologized this morning about the cake. So sometimes talking highlights differences. It does. But when we can celebrate we're not all going to be alike. And this is why I like to get on here and remind us that there's not a victim and a villain. There's a catalyst for our growth. And sometimes it's a positive catalyst, and sometimes it's a negative catalyst. Sometimes it's a painful catalyst. But if we use it to grow so that we can focus on what we do want rather than continue seeing our pain and not healing, we're still going to focus on what we don't want, that survival mechanism. But once we start the healing process, then we can start focusing more on what we do want to happen in our life. And we're going to see more of that happening. And it works kind of like when you see a car that you want to buy. Big guy, are you still here? I took the glasses off for a minute. They do hurt my nose too. When you see a car you want to buy, you notice that before you buy it, you don't see it. But then once you buy this car, it's like you see a bunch of those cars like that. Well, the same goes for what you want. See, when you start thinking about other things that you want, once you can see it, you'll start seeing it. But most of the time, when we're running our central nervous system's running us, that flight, fight, and freeze, and that trying to protect ourselves from what we don't want, we're not giving as much energy to what we do want. So it's about learning to heal those parts of us that we are carrying, that we say we don't want. I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to see this. I don't want to do that. It's about, what do I want? Live, love. I know that you're going to find what you want. Live, love, dreams. You're going to find what you want. It's on the other side of what you don't want. So when we heal from what we don't want and didn't want, maybe didn't even deserve, and healing for that means taking responsibility just for the power that we gave that event in our life to have over us, and our feeling underachieved or underdeveloped or under what have you, because you are no less than anybody else. We were all born worthy here. I'm trying to say worthy and born at the same time, so I sound crazy, but we were all born worthy here. When we come out, when we were kids, we didn't sit here and think, we didn't start apologizing for everything. We were told, apologize, or we just started apologizing because we seen it. We learned so much, and we can unlearn. If a lot of our parents had pain. They didn't have the resources that we have to grow. And so they didn't know how to communicate. They just communicated what was communicated then, what was communicated before that, and it just went on down the line. So when guilt shows up, most of us don't stop and investigate it. We react, we apologize, we comply, we explain ourselves, we defend ourselves, we shut down. The problem is that guilt is just a feeling. Feelings are important, but they don't always tell us the truth about the responsibility. Just because you feel guilty doesn't automatically mean you've done something wrong. And just because someone is upset doesn't mean automatically that you're responsible. So the healing work is learning to pause enough to ask, is this guilt mine? Because both earned guilt and unearned guilt require a response, okay? Earned guilt calls us toward accountability and amends. If you did something wrong, if you were passive aggressive, if you were aggressive, and you feel guilty about it, then it requires a response, an amends. How we amend is, I regret my behavior and I'm working not to do this anymore and to really work on it. I regret this, not just I'm sorry. I regret what I did. I regret if you shouted at somebody, and if you called them a name, verbally abused them. I regret that I verbally abused you. That was wrong and you did not deserve that. I'm not going to do it again. And because when we have to make an amends, we're less likely to do it again. When we know what we did, we claim it, we take responsibility for it, we're less likely to do it again. I can tell you that I've had to make some amends, and I have to make them less and less because I know that I'm able to play that tape through. And I don't want to hurt anybody. I really don't. Sometimes we can all have that inner child in us that, first thought wrong, some people call it. Angie, okay, Daniel, sometimes talking highlights differences. Joseph Leon, denial. Robbie, my stepdaughter overdosed last night. I'm trying to track her down. Some of the brothers are looking for her now. No one knows where she is, and her mother got a stranger sent a message. Oh no, Robbie, I'm so sorry to hear that. Wow. We'll be praying for you. Everybody be praying for Robbie and his stepdaughter, or his daughter, Jen. Yes, yes, Robbie, last night. So soon as they find out what's going on, I have to take off in a hurry. I bet you are stressing. I'd be stressing too. I apologize that I'm just now seeing that. Hi, Robbie. Hope and prayers with you and stepdaughter. God bless. Yes, God bless, Robbie. I'm so sorry to hear that. We have to separate our behaviors from our identity. We aren't a failure if we make mistakes. Absolutely, Angela. Absolutely. Robbie, you still here? Did you have to take off? I hate hearing that for you. That's scary. I hope you find her. I've made mistakes, Joseph Leon. I'm going to make more mistakes too, but not on purpose. But I'm a human being. Sometimes we just make a mistake. John London, that does sound like it is a stressful situation. I hope it will be okay too. My mind is to help enable others while knowing the outcome is no happy ending. I know, live, love, dreams, because we do that sometimes when we get here, is we just want other people to get to have the experience that we had, and so the thing is that be careful in helping, especially people in recovery, because I always tell people, because I've sponsored a great many people in recovery, and I always tell people nobody comes to my house until they've done a fourth step. When they've done a fourth step and they've been able to look at things, because I've had people, sponsees, let people come to their house, just off the street, and they will get stolen from. And I'm like, what do you expect? Is they just, so yeah, just be careful helping and enabling others, because, that's where I had to learn live, love, dream is what's my business, God's business, and somebody else's business. Because sometimes, like with what Robbie's going through, is that's his and God's business, and stuff. But enabling is also when we're telling other people, in essence, we're not saying it verbally with our mouth, but we're saying, I'm helping you because you don't have the capacity to help yourself. Basically, that's what enabling is I'm helping you because you don't have the capacity to help yourself. Are we doing it because we want to be appreciated? Because they may never appreciate you, So that's where we get with our real self-esteem. Because I know that I used to enable to, but then I would feel like I enabled people, and then they got better and they moved on, or sometimes they kept doing the same thing. And it was me that was the crazy one, because I was doing the same thing too, expecting a different result. Joseph Leon, you're needed by everything. That's interesting. All things are codependent on each other. Do you know what codependence means, Joseph Leon? Ramon Valentine, say you're sorry or else. Ramon. Robbie, it is John. I've got quite a few of the brothers looking for her now. I'm waiting for word back. Her phone is now going to voicemail, and it never ever is on voicemail. That is so stressful. We're all praying for you, Robbie. Keep us posted, okay? Yeah. Yeah, it will work out. Just let us know, okay? Live, love, dream. So I figured out, what if I do not want to become thinking twice and second guessing these days? Fear and uncertainty, hard to overcome. Stay strong, Rob. She would want you to never give up. Yeah. Second guessing is hard, and we do that for a while, live, love, dreams. We do, because when we're getting to learn to know ourselves, that's, and we're burying that, getting that stuff that was buried over our soul off of our soul. I know it can take years. It doesn't just go away like that. It takes time. It takes time and healing, for us to realize, why do I not trust myself? What are my choices? See, that's the thing is that's the thing in recovery is we learn what our choices are, but it takes a while to get comfortable with making the decisions, making the choices that are going to put us with what we do want. We have to be able to name it. Like somebody was saying earlier, I have a big vocabulary because I had to learn how to name things, name these feelings, name things that I wanted. Jen, how long has she been gone? First 24 hours are critical. Yeah. Robbie, sorry to interrupt. Let's stay focused on what we're talking about now. She disappeared. She OD'd last night, right, Robbie? She OD'd last night, so they're trying to find her now. Angela, how do you know that your daughter overdosed if you don't know where she is, Robbie? They got a phone call, he says. An alcoholic will steal your wallet and drink yourself to death feeling guilty. A junkie will steal your wallet and then help you look for it. Absolutely. Make sure they've at least done a 4-step before you let them in the house, darling. That's exactly true. I love them, but they ain't coming in my house until they've done a 4-step because they need to stay. A lot of times what happens is that people get to feeling better after 2 or 3 months and then go back out just because they're feeling physically better then, looking better then. And then they go back out and you don't need them to know where you live when that happens. Robbie, Ange, we got a stranger sent a voicemail on her phone. Say they can't wake her up. Now her phone is on voicemail. Oof. That is hard, Robbie. I know that's scary. Hey, Pam, it's okay. It's okay. Angela, sorry to hear that. We're all praying for Robbie's and his daughter because she's missing Pam. So send Robbie's family prayers. So in talking about earned guilt is a healthy emotional signal. It arises when our actions violate our values. John was here too, Pam. I don't know if John London's still here because it's like way early in the morning where John London is. He was here too. And we've got Live, Love, Dream here also. So perhaps and Angie's here and Kim's here and Ramon's here. We got a full house. So perhaps we acted out of anger. Maybe we were aggressive or passive aggressive. Maybe we withheld affection, manipulated, got even, acted selfishly, ignored the impact of our behavior, or failed to be honest with ourselves. Earned guilt invites self-reflection. It asks, did I act with integrity? Did I violate my values? Did I need to make amends? The challenge is that many people confuse the two forms of guilt. They carry unearned guilt while denying earned guilt. Do y'all get that? They carry unearned guilt while denying earned guilt. See, when we act passive aggressive, it's earned guilt, but we're denying it. And so when we get unearned guilt, like somebody just, looks at us wrong or what have you, then we think, what did I do? Right? Why are they mad at me? Well, Live, Love, Dreams. Forgiving myself and mean it. Loving myself truly. It begins with a thought. It's a selfish program. Simple and not easy. Exactly. And, I know for me, allowing those in the rooms, allowing the people there love me, that, like I say, the women taught me, about how to do things. I was jealous of them at first when I got there, but then as time went on, I just noticed the love. Angela, I pray for you and your stepdaughter, Robbie, right? Yeah, me too. Yeah, forgiving ourselves. And forgiving ourselves, it takes a while because then something will come up, we'll think, why do I think this? So, is the guilt truly mine? Am I responsible for what happened, or am I carrying something that belongs to someone else? Right? So this is the first step towards freedom, because sometimes when we want to fix somebody, we feel guilty if we can't fix somebody. And that's not our thing to do. Hey, Don, that's not our thing to do, to fix somebody. Grinch, are you coming over? So, now that do y'all understand the difference between earned guilt and unearned guilt? And here's an important question is how do you know which one you're feeling, right? Are you feeling earned guilt or unearned guilt? So, because when guilt shows up, most of us don't. I did that part. What happened here? Okay. So, when guilt arises, give yourself permission to pause and ask questions for earned guilt. Did I violate one of my values? So, if you were passive aggressive or aggressive aggressive, did I violate one of my values? Did I intentionally or carelessly harm someone? Did I act dishonestly? This is earned guilt, in case you didn't know what earned guilt was, the difference between earned guilt and unearned guilt. So am I avoiding accountability for my actions? And if someone else described this exact situation to me, would I believe they were responsible? Because sometimes, are you taking responsibility for someone else's? This isn't to make you feel bad about yourself. This is so that you can know the difference between unearned guilt and earned guilt. So what part of this situation belongs to me? Because sometimes there's two people guilty, right? So what would integrity ask of me right now? Is an apology or an amends needed? Sometimes people, in trying to save love that they may know in the back of their mind is not healthy, will sometimes apologize for things that aren't their fault. They'll sometimes try to bend and twist and tweak integrity to make them a doormat once again. So I want you just to be honest with yourselves. So if the answers point toward behavior violating your values, then earned guilt may be inviting you toward accountability and amends. Questions for unearned guilt. So you know what unearned guilt is. Things to ask yourself. Am I being asked to take responsibility for someone else's feelings, reactions, choices, or expectations? Because sometimes people will want you to take responsibility for them. They will tell you, think about how I feel. You may be hurting. Like this is gaslighting. When you're hurting and someone tells you, well, think about how I feel. They question your truth. If you say, this hurt my feelings, and they say, well, remember when you did this? See, then you're dealing with someone who's not trying to change. They're not trying to work on the problem. Okay. Even if you were guilty, and then you got to ask, am I going to subject myself to this? Did I simply say no or choose something different than what they wanted? Things that make you go, huh, Ramon? Am I feeling guilty because someone is upset or because I actually did something wrong? Would I still feel guilty if this person wasn't angry at me? That's a good one, right? Would I feel guilty if this person wasn't angry at me? Thanks, Angie. I'm glad that you got to be here. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Thanks for moderating. All right, everybody give Angie a hand. I know behind your screen, Bill will give Angie a hand. Angela, codependents also have to over-apologize to avoid losing their partner. They have fear of abandonment. I know, you're right, Angela. And even if they aren't guilty, they may apologize. They'll take that responsibility on, and it's not theirs to take on. Exactly. Does guilt feel familiar, like something I've carried my whole life? Ask yourself that. Does guilt feel like something you've carried your whole life? That's unearned guilt, and you can process it and heal it. Live, love, dreams. Felt relieved dropping that bag of bricks. Have you ever avoided thoughts, memories, or places where someone said something negative it shouldn't hurt if it's untrue, right? It gets there. And have I avoided places? I have avoided places where people were that I would be hurt until I healed the pain. I later, got over the hurt because, I may feel like somebody's a villain at first, but really I have to understand that I misread what was going on. Was my perception on point? Because sometimes I've been hurt from not listening to somebody talking about somebody I was dating or something like that. Maybe I didn't listen to them. I didn't want to hear what they were saying. I only heard the parts that I wanted to hear. Any of you other girls heard that out there? Hi, Mr. Goddamn. So sometimes we only hear what we want to. I'm gonna have to get my phone charged. There. So that's one. Grinch, what you doing? Okay. So but healing though, to answer your question, because I'm thinking about it, healing requires us sometimes to look at those things and see, did I read this right? Because sometimes we don't read it. I know for me, and that I know that that's second guessing ourselves and not trusting ourselves, but it takes a while. We will experience not trust before we experience trust, because that's how we do learn to trust ourselves, is to be able to take a look and process that stuff. We used to just make up our mind, or I did. I used to just make up my mind, and this is what I believe. But now I've learned to be curious about it, not so much as to be questioning myself, but to be curious about the situation so that I can see it from all the angles, right? Angela, I used to be a fearful avoidant, but I have never felt guilty about anything, to be honest. Really? Wow. I have felt guilty. I don't know what it's like not to feel guilty about anything, but I have felt guilty about some things. Robbie Mellon, my dad is in his own way used to make you look stupid to everyone for whatever I did wrong. It was his way to make you change, but then I grew up feeling stupid. I hear you, Robbie. I grew up feeling stupid too. Thank you, Pam. I was out having lunch with my friend Soraya today, and we went to Costco. She actually went in Costco because, yeah, I was done for the day. I needed to come home and write our stuff for tonight, the questions for tonight. Thank you. Yeah, Robbie, I had to remember though, you learned you were smart too. And I had to learn that I was smart. I had to let go of other people's perceptions of me. And sometimes other people's perceptions, like Robbie's saying, will make us feel guilty, will make us feel like we're not enough. Live, love, dreams. Words should not hurt from a complete stranger, maybe my pride or ego. That's the thing, live, love, dreams, is that I had to decide, what sometimes it is my ego that's hurt, and that is, pride goes both ways. Pride can be good and pride cannot be good. It just depends. Everything has two sides. So in the middle is harmony. So yes, sometimes our ego, and a lot of our ego has to do with that learned behavior. Like, a lot of people grew up thinking they should know. So they may villainize somebody thinking they should know, when in the codependence, like Angela is talking about, they didn't learn how to state what they wanted. So no one's going to know what they should know if you don't tell them what you want, if you're just thinking they should know. That's a good insight, though, live, love, dreams. Angela, did you feel anxious when you were blamed for things you didn't do as a codependent, Stacy? Yes, my central nervous system was running a lot, Angela. It was. If the laundry got stacked up, I would have to hear about, I'm going to burn these clothes, so I would feel guilty if the laundry got stacked up. Sometimes it would be like, so yes, I did feel anxious. My central nervous system, I would find myself walking around with my jaws like, I didn't look like that really, but my jaws would be locked, walking around with my jaws locked, trying to make sure I didn't make mistakes, because that I didn't want to get in trouble with another adult, you know. So here's another question to ask with unearned guilt is, does this guilt feel familiar, like something I've carried my whole life? That's what I just said. So am I taking responsibility for keeping the peace? Sometimes we take responsibility for keeping the peace. Pride versus ego, JR. The ego can be good and not good too, though. See, this is the thing is I used to think that, oh, the ego is bad. But the ego is good if your central nervous system isn't just totally. You're at Costco right now, Pam? I got some cotton candy grapes from Costco today. My friend got me the cotton candy grapes. She's a great friend, y'all. I know that I was bitching about the 2 hour thing, but she's like one of my besties. But the thing is like I was saying earlier, and what John London was saying when he was on here, is sometimes anger is good to be expressed. It's not good to be expressed in a mean way. You don't have to. A lot of people had anger expressed at them in a mean way. You don't have to have anger expressed at you in a mean way to get your point across. You can be like, when I get hungry, I need to eat. I don't need to be jacking around here, or just being able to state what you got angry about. Not that you have to be right or wrong about your anger, because we got she got something done that she needed to get done in that 2 hours I was bitching about, is it really needed to get done. And after I ate, I was totally okay with it. After I ate and got some air conditioning, it was fine. But I was not in a good mood when I was out there without the air. Did you believe that making mistakes was bad, Stacy? I used to be afraid of making mistakes because I thought that meant that I was stupid, like Robbie was saying. I share that commonality with Robbie. Is I used to think that I was stupid if I made mistakes, but now I know that I'm only human. Humans make mistakes. That's all. Thank you, Daniel. Humans make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. We might have to make an amends, or we might have to set a boundary, because we do teach people how to treat us. So, on this unearned guilt, Jen, best I don't know about these cotton candy grapes. Sounds like sugar coma. They're not really so much sugar, I don't think. I don't know, how genetically modified. I mean, all of that stuff, but yeah, they're not bad. There's not a lot of sugar, I don't think. And on Pam, do you know if those cotton candy grapes got a lot of sugar in them? Pam's good with this. I recommend y'all follow Pam if you're on a weight loss journey or even just trying to stay toned. She does her daily 50 and she knows a lot about nutrition. So heat does make people cranky. It does, Pam. I knew what you were saying, Angela. We can't feel guilty for making mistakes. No. We might feel guilty for a minute, but when we understand that we make mistakes, and mistakes are just we can correct. A lot of things can be fixed. If we make a mistake, a lot of things can be fixed. We're writing the stories of our lives. That's why there's erasers for mistakes. There's backspaces for when we're writing our story without out of integrity. If we're writing something and we're not in integrity, we can backspace and erase. Hey, McGlove, it's good to see you. Yeah, they really are grapes, Jen. They really are. I have cotton candy grapes. So they're really grapes and they just have a little bit more sweetness to them like cotton candy. My glove, I'm so glad you were able to make it. Pam is awesome. Pam, Kim, and Angie are my moderators. Daniel, keep doing what you're doing. It's definitely not a mistake. Well, thank you. Jen, off talk. Oh, no worries. No worries, Jen. No, that's okay. It is okay. We kind of talk. We kind of get off topic for a few minutes. That's why I keep these notes here so that I can get back to my space. Jason Stillwell, being hangry is real. Yes, it is, Jason Stillwell. It is real being hangry. And I did it. Once I get to eat and I get some air conditioning, I'll be nice again. But I was starting to get cranky. And that's my friends. They'll tell you, don't let Stacy get hangry because the gremlin comes out. So does this guilt feel familiar or something like I've carried my whole life? Now, this is unearned guilt. These are things that we can ask ourselves if we're not sure if it's unearned guilt or real guilt. You're very welcome, Angela. I appreciate it. I appreciate your questions and for your shares too. I'm so glad that you made it this evening, Pam. About 23 grams of sugar for cotton candy and 15 grams of sugar for regular. Yeah, well, I don't want to eat all of my grapes at one time. Grinch helps me eat them, thank goodness. My glove, working on the presidential dollar coin simultaneously with Susan B. Anthony. You are busy, my love. I'm so glad that you came on here this evening. Thank you. Yeah, you're right, Pam. Just don't eat a lot at once and add some protein. Yes. JR. Stacy, drink vitamin A for your eyes, and using glasses while on screen don't help. Off topic. Well, I have to read my notes with these glasses though, because I start reading this and stuff, and so I start reading the comments. I will look for them. Yes, they're good. They're good. All right. And then here's still in the unearned guilt questions, is am I afraid of what will happen if I don't comply? Thank you, JR. Am I afraid of what will happen if I don't comply? Anybody afraid of what will happen? George Washington through the younger George Bush. Y'all hear that? If y'all have these coins, my glob is looking for them. Thanks, JR. So am I being guilted into abandoning my own needs, values, or boundaries? See, this is how to know if you're having unearned guilt. A lot of times people who benefit from you not having your value and boundaries, some people do power trip. Live, love, dreams. If we forgive ourselves and pray to be forgiven, it is done right. We can't make others forgive us or accept our amends. You're so right, live, love, dreams. That's so true. But it does make our soul feel lighter when we know that we're trying to do the right thing. Yes, her journey is inspiring. J.S. Son Stillwell. I never know for sure if I'm guilty or not because I was made to apologize even when I was an innocent kid. You probably carry a lot of unearned guilt, J.S. Son Stillwell, because that's what I just asked these questions. I'm going to read them for you again, okay? Because you just got here, right, Angela? Narcissists make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They sure do. They sure do, because it benefits them for you not to have boundaries. So some people people that benefit from you not having boundaries, they're going to push back when you set boundaries, and they're going to try to make you think you're stupid or crazy or something like that, and that's verbally abusive. So Jason Stillwell, ask yourself these questions for unearned guilt, because so that you quit apologizing for everything. You do not need to apologize for being alive. All right, you're supposed to be here. You are worthy, valuable, and divine. So narcissists are the poorest beggars. That's very interesting. Yep. Because they're wanting, they demand, they're demanding. They are demanding. They're not going to act, they're demanding. Are narcissist folks? Yes, narcissist folks are master manipulators. I encourage you to watch if you're not sure what narcissists are, because I didn't know. I worked on my codependency, but I didn't know what a narcissist was. And I would hear people talking about narcissist. And then I got to experience a narcissist, and somebody told, I was explaining what this person did, and one of my friends is like, Stacy, that's a narcissist. So then I watched Dr. Ramani, and I'm like, oh, okay. I watched also Lisa Romano, also watched Dr. Les Carter. They're on here on YouTube, and they're very informative as far as codependency and narcissism. Narcissist or something else, borderline direct related to Satan himself. I don't like to villainize them, so because I can't help them. I cannot help a narcissist. I cannot, because they're going to manipulate everything. They are master manipulators. They're deeply wounded, so I don't like to villainize them because they're hurt, and I don't need to hurt them, but I can't help them. So my policy is, if I can't hurt somebody, if I can't help somebody, I don't need to hurt them. Trey Jones loves a good narcissist. All right, Trey Jones, I guess you like a fragmented nervous system or whatever, because that's what you're going to get with a narcissist. I'm not saying to subject ourselves, even though we don't want to hurt them. Don't subject yourself. So, questions for unearned guilt for you, J.S. Sunstillwell, is that, am I being asked to take responsibility for someone else's feelings, reactions, choices, and expectations? Did I simply say no or choose something different than what they wanted? Because if you choose something different than what they want, then that doesn't mean that you're wrong or guilty. Jen, right? Two wrongs don't make it right. This is the thing, is we have to, if we don't like something somebody does, we have to still not act back at them, because we don't want to become what we don't like in somebody else. That's the thing. Okay, McGlove. Oh, okay, that's all right. Angela, you can't feel compassion for narcissists because they know what they're doing and they don't feel empathy. They do not feel empathy. I know for me and my soul, though, I don't want to let a narcissist hijack my central nervous system, because I am supposed to be here and they do not get to have more power than I do. So it's very sad that they had their, whatever it is driving them, and they're, driving them to be and to behave the way that they do. Some of them can be very nice at first. You know, you have to have boundaries if you can with narcissists. The best thing is not to let them get too close, is the thing. And that doesn't mean to be hateful or anything else. I'm not hateful when I'm around someone who has that personality. I can tell when they have that personality, when the whole conversation is shifting around them the whole time, when they don't take responsibility for their words and actions. I know that that's a narcissist. They can be very nice. There's sometimes you have to have a lunch with them. Sometimes you have to do, but we don't need to hurt them. And hate begets hate. You're exactly right, Jen. No, they do not see themselves as the problem, and they're never going to, because it doesn't serve them. It's all about serving them. Angela, you can't feel compassion. Okay, yeah, they don't see themselves as a problem. You're right. You're right. Soulless vessels. They try to get something for nothing. Yep, that's true too. You don't share expensive lunches. Well, thank you too, Weed Dogs. Okay, so Jason Stillwell, are you still on here? Because I'm going to read you these questions if you are, but if not, I'm going to move on to the next section. Daniel Montgomery, please don't respond because this is a comment. They're not extremely white in person. They're just about the same color in person. I don't think they're extremely white. I just must be having a good teeth day. Thank you, Daniel. That's a good compliment, though. All right. Two Weed Dogs, you're welcome to be here, but we're on topic, okay? So I'm not going to answer your questions. Oh my goodness. Angela, if you feel compassion for a narcissist, they're going to take advantage of your compassion. Yeah. You have to do this in small doses. Yeah. When is it healthy to give and be nice? I say, like, what I had to learn from, one of my spiritual teachers is, he says, can I afford it? Can I afford it? Can you afford it mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially? If you can't afford it in one of those areas, that's enough to say no. And no is a complete sentence. I usually say no, thank you. Not this time. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead because I don't see JS. Thank you, Pam. I don't see JS Stillwell still here, so I'm going to move on. Okay, a response, and the response is not an apology. Okay, wait. Am I afraid of being guilted into abandoning my own needs, values, or boundaries? Sometimes people will guilt you to do that, like y'all are talking about with the narcissist. The narcissist will get you to, yeah, they don't even realize they're given to get, though, do they, Angela? I didn't. When I was doing it, I didn't realize that's what I was doing, or trying to prove something. So am I being guilted into abandoning my own needs, values, or boundaries? If the answers point toward a responsibility that isn't yours, then this may be unearned guilt. And the response is not an apology. The response is a boundary. A healthy life requires both the humility to make an amends when we're wrong and the courage to hold boundaries when we're not. I'm going to read that again. So a healthy life requires both the humility to make amends when we are wrong and the courage to hold boundaries when we're not. A simple framework would be what happened, and that's the facts. 2, what part is actually mine? That's the responsibility. And 3, what does integrity require now? Amends or boundaries? If integrity requires an apology, then make one. If integrity requires a boundary, then set one. Everyone found her, y'all. I'm glad she's alive, Robbie, and I'm glad you're going to get to talk with her. If you're unsure, pause and give yourself grace until clarity arrives. I'm so glad that you found her. Yes. Learning to distinguish between earned and unearned guilt is one of the foundations of a healthy self-esteem. Because self-esteem grows when we stop taking responsibility for what isn't ours and start taking full responsibility for what is. So the goal isn't to get rid of guilt. The goal is to understand it. Healthy guilt can guide us back into integrity. Unearned guilt can reveal where we need stronger boundaries. I'm getting tired. I can't even read. I know. I'm happy to hear that too. Oh, so good. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know, Robbie. I'm so glad that they found her. Live love dreams, letting the wrong ones in, keeping the good ones out, worse than being alone. Yes. Yes. So it's about knowing, who. Sometimes when I don't know, like when I got to the 6th and 7th step, I had to learn to do the opposite of what I would normally do. Like on my 7th step was like, do the opposite, Stacy, of what you would normally do, the shortcomings. So how I would normally behave or make my choices, had to choose to do the opposite of how I would make my choices. Jen. Then what happens when strangers come together in positive hope and little prayer always helps. Absolutely, Jen. Absolutely. That's what happens. Miracles happen. I'm so glad to hear that, Robbie, they found her. So the other teaches self-respect. One teaches accountability, the other teaches self-respect. When we learn the difference, we stop apologizing for existing and we stop avoiding responsibility when we truly owe it. And that's where healing begins. That's where self-esteem grows. And that's where our relationships become healthier because they're no longer built on blame, fear, or compliance, but on honesty, respect, and personal responsibility. So what do y'all think about that? So is this helpful for y'all tonight? I don't know if Rodolfo's still here. JR, Rodolfo, y'all still here? I think John London went to sleep. So at the end of the night, we've got a miracle because Robbie's daughter's been found. And I don't know about y'all, but I've really enjoyed sitting here with you all this evening. We've been here for a couple of hours, I think, almost. A couple of hours almost. It's been a great meeting in here tonight. It's been great. It's been a great live. I want to thank you all for being here. If you haven't, narcissistic parents treat their children as a burden. That's the cause of the guilt for existing. I know that's why I don't like to be mean to narcissists, because their parents did. And that makes me so sad that their parents were mean to them, because it's their survival skill. And so I don't have so much compassion and empathy that I ignore myself, but I do, like, I am nice. I don't have to hurt anybody. I know. We're so thankful, right, Pam? So the thing is to heal ourselves. We don't hurt or bleed on anyone else when we heal and work on ourselves. Sometimes you may need a coach. If any of you this resonated and any of you need a coach, I do one-on-one coaching, and you can email me from the description box. But otherwise, I thank you all for being here in the evening time. I'll be back on here Wednesday morning at 9 Central Standard Time. So there'll been a lot to digest, but very informative. Thank you for spending your time with us all. You are very welcome, Jen. Thank you for being here. So I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm just so glad that I got to connect with you tonight. It's always cool when we get someone that comes in here, because there's some of us that are here quite often, and we're building this core group, and I really just love it. And I love you all for being here. I thank you so much. And yeah, like I said, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because I'll be back. I'll be back. I come back Friday night, and then I'll be here on Wednesday morning and Sunday morning. Okay. All right. Y'all ready to breathe? Jen, what we typically do at the end of these is we do a little breathing exercise. We do 5 breaths, because breathing helps us to regulate and regenerate. Breathing helps us to remove anxiety. Breathing helps us to be able to start asking ourselves those questions, that I brought up earlier, so that we can, start thinking about these things and asking ourselves these questions. So when we feel guilt, to not just take it on right away, and not just to dismiss it right away, but to say, is this mine to carry? Do I need to set a boundary, or do I need to make an amends? Rather than just assuming that it's our fault, because it's not always your fault. Live, love, dreams. Healthy to become distant, cutting off negative spirited ones, but not feel as though I deserve it. Successful. You do deserve successful relationships. You are very welcome, Miss Pam. All right, y'all. Let's do some breathing here, okay? So we're going to breathe in our own innocence, our own value, and our own worth, knowing that it comes from in here, in that breath, in your heart. And then we're going to release. We're going to hold it for a minute and hold how good feelings feel. How holding our innocent space feels, because you were born worthy, you were born innocent, you were born divine. Divine. Like sitting like this in your chair saying, I am divine. Anyway, so breathing that in. So we breathe it in, fill up our tummy, let our head come up. That breath is going down the throat, opening the heart. And then you're going to get breath in your mind. And we're going to sit with it for 4 counts if you can. Just do your best. If that's too long, that's okay. Just do your best. And then release gently and slowly out of your mouth. We're going to do 5 of these. The box ones, right? Live, love, dreams. So here we grow. Take a deep breath in. We're doing 5. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Just 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe. Hold it. Release. All right, how y'all feeling? That was good, huh? You are very welcome, Robbie, and thank you very much for the compliment on my dress. I'm so happy that your daughter turned up. That's right. That's right, Angela. Thank you, Angela, for being here. I'm so glad that you're here. Live, love, dreams. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Pam, I, of course, appreciate you. Kim, are you still here? I'm glad that Kim's mom, y'all, if you didn't hear, Kim's mom gets to come home from the hospital tomorrow. Another thing we prayed about, and it's happening, So, yeah, it's so great to have you all in this community. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. JR, thank you too. I've enjoyed this and I hope that it's helpful. You're very welcome, Angela. Sorry, I was yelling for Grinch. You're very welcome, Angela. Grinch, are you going to come say bye to everybody? Come here. Come here. Come here. Grinch, come here. Grinch is going back in the house. He's not going to say goodnight. I know it is a special night. Yes, it is. John London, you made it. You're still here. Darling, I hope you get some blessed and regenerated rest. Did that breathing make you tired? I didn't know you were still here. Thank you so much, JR. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Did that breathing get you ready to go to sleep now, John London? I hope so. Yes. All right. All right. Thank y'all so much. I'll be back on here Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. or I'll see you Friday evening at 6. Okay? I'm going to let y'all say hi to each other a few more seconds before I go. There'll be time for me to make my golden milk and with Grinch. Yeah. Ramon, is Kim still on here? Or did she leave? We're so grateful that her mama's getting to come home tomorrow. All right, John London, I look forward to seeing you the next live. Yeah, the breathing hurts, Ramon. I know. I know. I will see you or Kim tomorrow night, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. I thank y'all so much. Yes. Yes. Great news. Great news. Thank y'all so much. She's at the hospital with her dad. Okay. All right. Thank y'all so much. Hope y'all are going to get you some blessed and regenerated rest, especially like John London. What is it, about 2 in the morning there, John? Or 3? I'm about to go to sleep for too long. All right. 2 a.m. All right, y'all. All right. Good night, y'all. I look forward to seeing you Wednesday or Friday. So 1 more hour and he can hear a bunch of crazy stuff happening around if he pays attention. Yeah? Yep. All right, y'all. Good night, Ramon. Good night, John. JR. See y'all tomorrow. Pam. Live, love, dreams. And everyone. Thank you so much, Angela. The witching hour. Yes. Yep. Good night, y'all.